All right, so the next panel is actually quite an interesting topic because I think that really relates to sort of like intimately to how we perceive artificial intelligence today. When we think about AI, it comes across as sort of this new, shiny topic that has been sort of like caught all this buzz and all this attention in the past couple of years. And while that certainly is true, its development actually dates back to the 1950s when Alan Turing famously asked the question, can machines think? And since then, the field of AI has really been undergoing a number of sort of like groundbreaking discoveries and then going again through AI winters and then again periods of hype cycle followed again by periods of AI winters. Now, as we are approaching the year 2024, we see that these fluctuations between AI hypes and winters are becoming rarer and rarer. And in fact, the capabilities are growing at an exponential rate. So looking at the AI development on what it's like today and what we can expect to see in the future is going to be the topic of this next panel. And for this, I'm incredibly pleased to be welcoming the moderator for today's session, who is Rob Ferguson, who is head of AI in Microsoft for startups. Rob, over to you. Please come over to the stage. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rob to the stage.
Okay, thank you. Hi, and welcome, everybody. I think you can all hear me okay. Maybe grab a seat. Hi, I'm Rob Ferguson. I'm the head of AI for Microsoft for Startups. So if I only get to teach you one thing today, it's that if you're a startup and you're interested in working with Microsoft, you can go to Founders Hub, qualify to up to $250,000 worth of credits that you can use for AI services like GPT-4 on Azure OpenAI, as well as a whole variety of other services, including compute. And so please come check that out and maybe join us for a happy hour later. But today, I have the great pleasure to introduce you to 3 startups who are all building AI on Microsoft. On my perch, I get to meet literally hundreds of startups. I'm an exited CTO with over 20 years of machine learning experience, and I've been working for multiple clouds and helping startups navigate that space. So today we have 3 startups from Synthesized with Nikolai, Weights and Biases with Robbie, and Hot AI with Anastasia. And they're going to talk to each of us about what it's like to develop and build AI in this era. One of the big things that I always tell people is that building AI software is different from traditional software. You have different kinds of constraints and different goals that you're going to have to deal with. You know, in old software days, if an API didn't work, somebody gets paid, you say, hey, it's down. Today, if an AI goes off the rails, it might be a long time before you have any idea what's going on. An AI hallucinating one region might behave differently than another. So in this new era of software, I think we really have to think about things differently. And so to that end, I'd love to ask my panel a few questions here. And let's start over here with you, Robbie. Nikolai. Why don't you give an introduction about you and your company?
Yeah, so my name is Nikolai. Hi, everyone. Great to see all old friends and my new friends as well. I'm the CEO and founder of the company called Synthesized. We solve a very simple problem of replacing sensitive production data from non-production environments with production-like data, and really enabling development teams, application teams, QA teams build better applications and deliver them to the market faster. So what we've built is the enterprise standard for data provisioning in non-production environments. And the company is headquartered in London. We recently launched our US operations in Atlanta and New York. And we are working with some of the largest companies in the world, such as Deutsche Bank, UBS, a number of companies in the US in the pharma sector, insurance. And yeah, so amazing to see old friends here and then make new ones as well. So really excited about this discussion.
Awesome. Robbie?
Yeah. Hey, I'm Robbie. I am regional director at Weights and Biases. So you think Weights and Biases, what's that? So it's basically the mission control for your machine learning workflow. So everything that's related to experiment tracking. How can I find the right model? How can I train it faster? How can I bring it faster to production? Talk to us. This is basically what we do. Maybe you have heard about GPT-4 that was trained on weights and biases.
Amazing. Anastasia?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anastasia. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hout.ai. We are a skincare SaaS platform that uses generative AI to help retailers, brands, clinics, and everyone who has services for skin to personalize their offering and make their customers loyal, happy, and have higher conversions and better sales.
So to get us started, with the rise of generative AI, how can we determine if data is actually generated by an AI or a human? How will changes in data access and collection affect machine learning developers?
Yeah, I think there are two main questions, and I think it's also important to put it in the context. So we specifically focus on the enterprise setting, right? So when you have databases like SQL Server, Azure Stack, and of course number of others, you have data pipelines, CI/CD. And it's very different from consumer-based applications. So when we think about the enterprise, it's from the data generation perspective. I think it's very important to label data. And this is not new concept, right? So we've seen companies such as, for instance, Big ID, different data scanning tools. So you have a lot of data categorization, cataloging, and you can classify data as public, private, confidential. And there are different definitions of data within the enterprise environment. And I think it's just important for any data which comes from generative AI to label it accordingly, according to the definitions within the company. So this is key from the generative data perspective. I think also importantly we need to distinguish between the basically data and information or the value it conveys. And my background is very technical, as you may tell. I spent over 10 years in professional machine learning research. So I did my PhD at Cambridge in machine learning and statistics. Spent some time at Stanford. Used to work for a hedge fund from New York as well. And it's very important to distinguish between data and information, and data is normally a container for the value which is out there. And historically, production data, or even original data, is a really bad container. And it's bad because of privacy issues, it's bad because of quality issues, it's bad because of time it takes to get access to it. And hence, if you think about data generation perspective, it's more about how we encapsulate the information, the value which is out there in the generated data sets, and then deliver that to the end user, which is application teams, development teams, staying compliant with regulations, staying compliant with the data requirements, compliance requirements, and speed requirements. And going back to developer standpoint, I think what developers really need is fast access to production-like data of the right quality, of the right privacy, and there needs to be, of course, staying compliant with the internal regulations and also external, data privacy, regulations, laws, etc. And from that perspective, generative AI gives a very interesting avenue to innovate, because it enables you to create snapshots of different databases, of different pipelines, and enable that to developers right away. So in particular, so this is the work we do with Deutsche Bank, with UBS, in terms of enabling developers have fast access to production-like data at the very, very, very quickly. And yeah, so developers really need, so from the I used to be data scientist and ML engineer myself in my past career. So what you need is access to a lot of high quality data points, but acquiring some is way more expensive than acquiring others. So you can think of black swan events, you can think of rare diseases, you can think of fraud detection events. So acquiring those events is really expensive, and you don't want to be waiting for them to appear in production. So actually, generative AI enables you to provide those and generate those in advance at a very low cost and make them available to the end user. So this is the work we do with a bunch of customers in the insurance space, finance space, in the pharma space, healthcare, where those rare events are really critical to build robust systems and deliver those systems to the market. So I would say it really augments, but of course you need to be, of course, aware of how to do that. And yeah, so this is quite key, not to, of course, completely replace it, but label, augment, and then have the right processes and controls around it.
So what I'm hearing is not only will you want to use generative AI as part of your data set and label it, but you don't want to have the black swan event where you need to model anyways. So by working proactively with synthetic data, you're more likely to be able to build a more robust model.
100%, and this is not a new concept. It's been around in the stats and machine learning community for the last maybe 40 years, and it's really a lot about how we can actually enable those events, enable those data points at the, as mentioned, at a very low cost to the end user to build better applications, more robust applications. Because what you want to do in advance is to actually hatch all those risks when those events happen, and you just know that your system is going to robustly address those events when they occur in the future. And we see this like massive trend in terms of previously what we see companies do is they try to test against the historic events, but you can only test against what happened in the past. Now we see a lot of companies moving towards testing against what may happen in the future. And this is really important, because it enables you to validate and hedge a lot of risk and make sure you have the right strategy to when those events occur.
So sometimes we don't have the data, but sometimes we can't even pick out the right model. So my next question is for Robbie. And with an increasing number of models available, how can data science and developer teams effectively approach model selection?
That's the $1 million question. I think 3 things that come into my mind. First thing is transparency. So you need to assure that you have a central way where you really compare your experiments, your models, with all the details that you need, accuracy and loss and so on and so forth. That's the first thing. Second thing, and this is honestly quite close to my heart, is collaboration. So fun fact, when we are talking to customers, and do you like collaborate in real time? Yes, of course. We have remote working ML teams. How do you collaborate in real time? Well, we take screenshots and send them via Slack. Sure. Well, it would be better if you have a real centralized system where people can collaborate, and with that you ensure that you bring like complexity down, you reduce redundancy and all this stuff, right? So that's the second part. Third part is model management and keep track of data versions. So you definitely need to keep track of all your data versions, the code, data sets. This is key to make the right decisions.
Yeah, even with famous large models like GPT-4, I've personally experienced model versioning change intra-month, where you think that you understand how the model works, but then all of a sudden you experience it and it's slightly different. Has version control changed from the way that we usually thought about it?
I think so. Well, first off, I think the most important thing is that you need to have it. That's the first step in the right direction. Does it change? Well, we get more and more data sets, and we get like the volume of data is getting bigger, but that's why you need to ensure that you have a scalable system behind it. But is there a big difference? Well, no, but on the other hand, you just need to set up it properly. That's basically the most important thing.
Well, and our last panelist has actually put these things into production herself. And so one of my, actually being a user of AI and getting it out into public, you're already, deploying an AI practice can be quite different from the fantastic one-off demos we see at conferences. How do we know when it's time to build a custom model? And what happens when your model needs to work on data outside of your data set?
It's a great question. I think we're all getting overly excited sometimes about new technologies, and then there is kind of this expectation, and then this is reality and realization. I don't think it comes immediately, like this realization, but you need to build a custom model. It usually takes some time, but then eventually you see that the model that you thought will deliver is not doing the job. I can give you an example with generative AI that we personally experiencing in-house. Everyone knows that data scarcity, lack of data that leads to biases, cases of unfair AI are becoming more and more like on the radars. For example, if you take a model like Midjourney, I mean, like, raise your hand if you used Midjourney like at least once, like for your personal thing or for work, right? And I think many of you experience this frustration, but you give like perfectly detailed prompt, but it's just not giving you what you wanted, right? And in our case, we wanted initially to use generative AI to enhance our data assets, to make this data really diverse, so that we can build this fair AI. But if you ask any program like Midjourney or like OpenAI models to generate a picture of someone with hyperpigmentation so that you can really train on this data, you will never get this picture, right? I tried maybe 100 times. I asked my team to do it 100 times. It just didn't work. So we thought, OK, it looks like we need the only way for us to do that will be to deliver and build a custom model. And then I think, to the point about generative AI, I think it's important for companies to also think of their data assets and building their own models, because the regulation is also changing, and we need to be prepared to have our own assets to develop that AI that specifically does the job and can deliver, deliver in our case. And yeah, I think that more and more companies are now seeing the benefits of using frameworks to building their models, and I think this is the future of generative AI goes. Again, from just general generative AI, like the concept of general AI, to specialized generative AI.
And so what it sounds like to me is that it's not going to just be one master model to rule them all. That you actually, at times, you're going to need specialization to go through and to build for your cases. In fact, there may even be data deserts in the places where you're working. So you might need some combination of both generative AI and a specialized model in order to build out in the wild.
Yeah, I think that, first of all, to what Rob is telling, that versioning is very important, right? Seeing what was, delivering the best results, what was optimal, because we should think of that it's not R&D. Production environment or your enterprise is not R&D where you have unlimited resources to try, 100 models. You need to find a path, and in every task, some models are performing better, and you need to kind of grow on that vertical, models that work and generative AI that works.
All right, so that's the present of building models. Now, these are startups, so they're pretty much already 3 years ahead of where everybody else is. What happens in the next 3 years? Rapid fire for each of you.
Oh, gosh. I think what we see a lot with enterprises we deal with and partners we deal with is that obviously the production-like data for application development teams, QA teams will still be there, but there will be an explosion of production-like data for building ML-based applications, data science-based applications, LLM-based applications. And production-like data for that is key, especially for enterprise. So all of our clients, partners, experiment with a lot of technologies. Well, some of it is provided by Microsoft. And of course, the challenge there is data privacy, data governance, how we enable production-like data for testing of those applications in your tenant, whether it's Microsoft tenant or whether it's on-premise. So you still need to enable and resolve those privacy and data governance regulations. So we will see a lot of that happening in the coming years. It's already happening. The second point, I think also, those models will become more domain-specific. So we see that teams, because companies have different departments, different divisions focusing on specific problems, we will see a lot more specific, domain-specific applications of LLMs, because teams need to fix specific problems and achieve specific KPIs, as opposed to, oh, hey, here's a nice, shiny platform, horizontal, and let's see how it works. So that's already in the past, right? So now it's more about, OK, I have this specific fraud modeling team, and I need to fix this fraud detection system. Let's build something with LLM. Let's build something with an advanced machine learning model, but we need a lot of production-like safe data available immediately for testing of that stack. And also, of course, cloud migration is still there. Of course, lots of banks, insurance companies, government, healthcare, still, obviously, like many in this audience know, a lot of data is on-premise, but innovation is in the cloud. So how do you actually match that? So applications are getting migrated, but data is migrating a little bit slower because of all kinds of data regulations. Think of Switzerland, right? So Switzerland has one of the most kind of strictest data privacy regulations, and you need to migrate a lot of, think about migrating a lot of data to the cloud. So, and of course, to unlock that value which companies like Microsoft provide. And I think in terms of, like somebody was joking like earlier today, and I really like that, which is So we know AI has won when we are not going to talk about AI. So, and then we know that, okay, AI is with us, and it's basically widely available, and there are domain-specific models, privacy controls, data governance controls around it, and everybody solving those specific problems and achieving their KPIs. So we're definitely going to see that more and more in the coming years.
In fact, the top question that I get asked by enterprises wanting to work with startups is, can startups actually work in a compliant environment? And the answer, I think, is yes. Same question over to you. What's in the next 3 years?
Yeah. I think in addition to Nikolai's point, and he mentioned that what we see, of course, these huge models, they will most probably be out there, and also like in 3 or 5 years. The thing is with the compute and all the costs that are related to that at some point, and this is what we see already right now in the market that's happening, and to get more specific, more smaller models for a certain topic or purpose, right? Because I always draw that picture of if you have like an issue with your car, do you ask your general practitioner, or would you better prefer ask your local mechanic guy? So this is definitely what we see, be more specific, be more cost efficient next to these massive LLMs and large language models.
Yeah, so definitely there's trade-offs.
Yeah.
And I think classic systems engineering is just as important as it ever was, but now in a new space. And finally?
So I think that we're quite often, when we think about generative AI or like AI in general, we also unconsciously think about cloud. But I actually think that there will be a shift like of the ratio edge versus cloud in favor of edge, because it can deliver a lot of benefits, like you can anonymize data on device, for example, perform some first operations, and then continue processing in the cloud. I think edge can offer a lot of benefits, including like the capability to deliver AI in places where internet connection maybe is not so great, but then also offer a lot of privacy benefits, and generally I think we will see more powerful device and therefore more of the edge AI on our consumer devices.
Well, that's actually all the time we have. Can I get a hand for our panelists? Thank you guys so much. We have a booth outside today at the Microsoft for Startups booth. I'd love to see you all out there, and we could learn more about all these different startups and how you could work with Microsoft for Startups. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.